And here we are on our Bone Voyage, a
Just checking the
journey into
spelling.
finding out more about the Skeleton Crew, Paul.
Yay! So, since we were last on air, episodes one and two have landed.
They
What
have.
did you think? Have you seen them? Did you enjoy
I've
them?
saw them both. I've watched them both multiple times. I
Yes, me too.
actually quite thoroughly enjoyed both of them.
Me too.
Um, to some degree, a little bit surprised that I enjoyed them as much as I did.
Yeah, I was really pleased that the kids weren't annoying. They were actually very good.
Yeah.
Even the poor guy in the elephant mask. They did. No, I think they did a cracking job. It's better than I hoped it would be, and certainly better than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, really enjoying it so far. Can't wait to see what happens. I think we get it the early hours of Wednesday morning.
Yes,
Um,
it's about 1 o'clock, I think, 2 o'clock in the
yeah,
morning, I think.
yeah. But you've prepared a few slides, I believe
I
now.
have, so we could
Yeah.
talk about the um, talk about the show and what our thoughts are. So, grabbed a few screen grabs as we talk through it, and this is obviously how they sort of built up the show at the start.
Yeah.
Since the fall of the Empire, the New Republic has maintained order, and yet remote hyperspace routes are increasingly plagued by piracy. These pirates boldly brand their armored hulls as a sign to all ships. So it's a very traditional kind of introduction to a 1930s, 40s pirate adventure, I kind of felt like.
Yeah. It's the Jolly Roger on the ship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see the pirates board.
I thought this, I thought that was genius how they boarded it. So basically, you had a thing that sort of like bores into the hull of the ship,
Yeah.
clips on, and then creates the tunnel from their ship into the ship that they've captured. Brilliant. I love that.
The only downside of doing that is you board the ship and you can steal what that ship's got, but you've
Yeah.
kind of written that ship off, haven't you?
Yeah, but you don't want the ship. You only want the money. You only want the loot.
Yeah. So we're introduced to the pirates and the pirate captain
Yeah.
as well. Are you going to
Do you want
admit what you found out about pre-show,
Do
Paul?
you want to? Yeah, go on. I had no idea that this was Jude Law. No idea whatsoever.
Captain Silvo.
Not a clue. I thought he's dead, but yeah. Oh well.
And I
Never
thought it
mind.
was obvious because it was just Jude Law's voice. And
It's really
obviously he's
typical.
been overthrown uh, by Brutus and that's jailed.
Yeah.
And that explains why he was in jail. But basically, it looks like Captain Silva's been captain for a while, but not been a very good pirate. They haven't been getting enough pirate loot to keep everybody happy, and he kind of puts all the effort into capturing the ship, loses some
Do you think
crew on the
do you
way.
think there's like this hints that he's like an intergalactic sort of Jack Sparrow?
Yep.
He's
And open the vault, and there's one coin there. It's a little bit
oh,
like if you invested in the Hawk Tuah meme coin this week. You think there's
I've,
going to be money,
I've
and
got I've
then
got the wrong top on. I've got the wrong
yeah,
top on.
yeah, and then you just lose it all in minutes, and that's basically what happened to Captain Silvo. He invested in the Hawk Tuah coin and ended up in jail, and probably wishing that people are spitting on that thing. Oh dear,
Well,
that's a new low
this
for the
is
show.
taking this is taking an unexpected turn, but there you
It has, yeah. Let's get child friendly again. We'll have some breakfast.
yeah.
Not blue
Let's pour
milk,
some blue
green
gunk.
milk. So, do you think this was came from the same animal as Luke in the Last Jedi?
It looked too watery to me. It was horrible. I mean, if that tasted anything like it looked, that kid did very well to act his way through that one. It was horrible.
Yeah,
Pond water. Ugh.
but that's obviously Win, and he's there, single parent father who's a
Yeah.
little bit rude to his son and hasn't got much
Yeah.
time for his son. He's a bit work um, dedicated and
He's a workaholic. He's trying to do his best for his son, but he's getting it all wrong, isn't he?
yeah.
It's a real world problem.
But Wim,
Nice house, lovely house.
decent kid at heart is Wim. So he heads off to school,
Yeah,
meets his school pal Neil, who at the first attempt Neil goes Sith. So it basically suggests what I've said all along. It Neil's the real evil in this entire franchise.
we knew it all along.
Yeah.
But
Both
having the
love Jedi versus Sith storylines, and so they kind of play lightsabers as they wait for the school bus.
and earlier on we'd seen Wim playing with action figures, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Um, and KB and Fern, they go. They don't take the school bus because they're cool. So
Yeah.
they take Fern's speeder and head off out in the forest. There's a shortcut to the school, so they get to school before Wim and Neil, who arrive and get directed by the droids in. And here is the lust of Neil's attentions, Runa, um, along with Fern's mother, who happens to be one of the very heads of the planet. It appears working for the head of the school here, I think, and kind of maybe emphasize a little bit why Fern's a bit of a rebel because her mother's very much part of the structure.
He's a careers advisor, but it looks like you don't really have much choice in what career you're having. It's very sort of laid out in front of you. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah,
all told they need to get a career path because they need to contribute to the Great Work. And
yeah.
those of you who don't know, the Great Work was a concept brought up in the High Republic series of books and comics, where everyone had to contribute to something, whether it be hyperspace travel or some form of science or whatever. Um, and this is our first kind of indication as to Artatin, the planet that they're on. They seem stuck in old-fashioned ways to some degree, and this becomes relevant to the story a little bit later. I think we'll come back to. I think
Yeah, it's a very on the surface of things, it looks like a very sanitized, very sort of like, I suppose it's meant to be like very middle America,
yes,
and it's meant to look like happy suburbia. It's
a little bit
almost like,
isolated and perhaps not
yeah,
touched by the troubles around it.
and quite false, almost like the Truman Show kind of sort of vibe to
Yeah,
it.
I
Yeah,
think so.
yeah, yeah.
And obviously we see a little bit of the suburbia you mentioned, and after school, Fern and KB still racing about in the speeder. Um, Neil goes back to his family, who's kind of got a whole family unit there: mother, father, brothers, sisters, and compared to Wim, who goes back to an empty house, which was kind
But
of
a beautiful abode. I mean, that's been
yeah,
IKEA'd out, doesn't it? That look at that.
yeah. And again, it kind of indicates his father's quite work driven and is kind of poor Wim's kind of been left to fend for himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, KB's very technical minded, going to work trying to fix Fern's speeder, which had broken down. Whilst Fern sort of does no work but stares away into the distance. Very reminiscent of Luke Skywalker and needing a power converter, but also dreaming of something else other than where she's at. And of course, um, she goes home when she's kind of confronted by her mother, who's wanting her to do very well at school, be very well educated. And Fern seems to be doing well at school, regardless of her sort of rebelling elsewhere in life. Which compares to Wim, who's lying in bed stressed because he's got his big test the next day and knows he's not nowhere near ready for it.
He's a bit of a dreamer, isn't he, old Wim? Bless
He
him.
is. He is. And of course, sleeps in, misses the school bus. And so Neil's kind of left there uh, um, to sit his exam, distracted by Runa, who's inched ever closer towards him. Uh, and Wim tries to take a shortcut through the forest that he saw Fern take the day before, but ends up crashing his bike. But on crashing his bike, discovers a doorway, which he thinks is a Jedi temple.
But it's not.
It's not. Um, Interestingly, and it's something that occurs throughout the episodes, and I don't know if it's a clue to anything, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. These safety droids keep appearing,
Yeah.
and the safety droid, obviously very interested in what Wim's up to, couldn't care less about the fact there's a giant door there, and what's that door for? Um,
I thought it was more of a truancy officer.
well, I thought that until I saw the way they sort of interacted with his father later on,
Yeah.
which we'll come back to.
Yeah.
But your thoughts at this point, Paul, in the episode, we're kind of halfway through there, and we're starting to
I
learn a little
thought,
bit about the characters.
yeah, I thought the pacing of it was great. It wasn't it was economically told, but you could string everything together and work out that Neil had got a very nice home life. Wim probably financially not too bad off, but emotionally devoid of of any connection perhaps to his dad. Um, you got the rebellious two girls, probably the cool kids. I think they're meant to be slightly older. Are they slightly older than
It
women?
kind of gave that impression, I think.
Yeah, maybe a year above or something.
Yeah.
So straight away, women's thinking, "Oh, they're cool. Look at them. They're not riding the tram to school like I am." But the fact that he's tried to do the same shortcut that he's seen KB and Fern do, and it's all gone awry, and he's fallen down into that hole. Um, it's just a nice way of introducing this doorway to something else, and I suppose it's a metaphor in a way. It's a doorway to another world for them. It's Narnia, it in a sense.
Yeah. We see the safety droid takes him back to school, where for the first time he encounters Fern face to face, having been observing her from a distance, and they strike up a conversation where he kind of suggests that he's found a Jedi temple in the woods, which interests Fern because a little bit like women, she's looking for adventure, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And so on the way home, he visits our friend Neil's house, where we meet Neil's family, and Neil doing a Greg Wallace in the tub. He's got his trunk
No,
out for everyone to see.
before we explore that one further, just go back one slide, please, Brian, because we cannot afford to miss the opportunity to acknowledge the fact that the holiday special is now canon. How
That's true.
amazing, that is brilliant. Is Neil's little brothers and sisters sat round watching the equivalent of CBeebies on a hologram and loving it. What's that all about?
The the other thing, if you look in the background, there's like a
Yeah.
teddy on the floor that looks remarkably like Max Rebo.
Yes, it does.
And these blue elephant like aliens are not supposed to be um, the same characters from the band or the same alien
No.
species as the characters from the band. So I just find that interesting.
Maybe it's meant to be like an action man of Neil.
Yeah. Back
Anyway,
to Greg.
back to the horrific bubble bath.
Back to Greg Wallace getting his trunk out. uh, I don't even want to explain that one.
No,
But
no,
yeah,
no.
so Neil is basically told by Vim to come with him. Let's go to the woods, and they head off on their proper looking chopper bikes with baskets and ribbons on the handlebars. Proper 1980s. I love that. And head to where they discover the ship. But already there was KB and Fern,
Yeah.
because Fern's looking for adventure. And she kind of shows her kind of level of intelligence and command of a situation, I think, by tricking the boys into doing all the work to dig it out. And KB uses her tech skills to open the door. Now, at this point, I was kind of liking, I was really liking Neil's performance, and I thought Vim did quite well in this episode as well. I was
Yeah.
really disappointed that the character of KB was almost like a sidekick,
I think
and
KB's meant to be
almost,
like a robotic sidekick. I
yeah,
think that's.
almost like a robotic sidekick. And I hope that she gets her chance to shine,
I think she
because
will.
I'm kind of looking at it as episode one was Wim's episode two was Fern's episode. So I hope they all get an episode to shine.
Yeah.
I didn't think she got much opportunity to act, and it was really just Wim and Fern in the first two episodes that really got a chance to show what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
it,
think she will come into her own. I think at the moment she doesn't need to. So there'll be some scenes which is just her. I mean, there's some quite nice scenes in the next episode, in episode two, but we'll come back to that in a bit.
yeah. So they make their way into the ship, and for the first time, Wim's dad starts to show a little bit of compassion. He's worried where his son is,
Yeah.
which I hope becomes quite a positive arc. And I think it will, because when you see some of the clips and trailers, the kids obviously make it back to Artatan because you see them with Fern's mother and with Wim's dad. Um,
And and for those people who have watched this with subtitles, the dad is actually called Mr. Wendell,
yeah.
which for those of you who know their 80s sort of music, there was a song called Mr. Wendell that did quite well back in the day.
um, so he's out looking for the kids. Meanwhile, on the kids, they find a deactivated robot that will later learn to be Shmi, and they start to explore the ship. We don't get to see too much of it 'cause it's very dark, but they accidentally power it up, and it starts to take off, which the father witnesses, and the kids escaping it in effect, even though they don't want to escape, um, and they kind of fly away. But going back to this scene with the father, and I think it actually, I'm going to go forward because I think it appears in episode two.
Yeah.
Um, we see the kids head off into hyperspace, and the droid's activated, gets his little Darth Vader scene, and then we get a great scene with Fern, and the actress gets to show her real acting chops here. I think in this scene, really quite
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
clever and powerful scene where she convinces the droid that she's the captain of the ship, and he now works for them, and he, being a droid, falls into proper behaviors for a droid, where he falls in line and does what he's told, which I was actually quite happy with, because often you get in these things where the droids have too much autonomy, I think, in Star Wars.
Yeah. He's not. He's no K2SO, is he? Let's be honest.
No. And he pilots them away. And this is what I was trying to get to, where the father's out looking in the woods.
Yeah.
Rather than worry about the ship, again, the droids are worried about the humans. And so this is where I come back to, I think there's something going on with the planet of Atatan, where, without really realizing it, the humans living on the planet, and the aliens, the beings living on the planet, are really under control of the
They're
government.
trapped, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
They basically. It's almost like prison. Yeah.
They are held captive, and they don't realize that they're held captive. And it's also shown by the fact that there's a barrier that prevents people discovering the planet, and it prevents the hyperspace travel.
Yeah.
Um, and these kids have kind of broken all those kind of barriers by getting out on this ship. Um,
Definitely. Yeah.
on board, they start to encounter skeletons of the former crew, which makes me hope we're going to get to see flashbacks. And if you remember back to On Atatan, where they found the ship, it was kind of in a valley.
Yeah.
I hope that's caused by it crashing there, and we're going to see it crash in Atatan. We're going to see the whole story of this crew and what happened.
Do you suspect that this crew might be from quite some time ago?
I believe we'll find out they're going to be from the High Republic era.
Right.
And something happens and that planet cuts itself off from the rest of the galaxy and remains cut off for 100 years and more.
Oh, okay, okay.
And that's why it becomes a legend with the pirates, which we'll see in a minute, because that ship was a pirate ship that went missing. And the assumption will be that there was lots of gold in that pirate ship and it was last known going to Atatin. And
Yeah,
that's why it becomes a legend.
yeah.
So
That's cool.
I hope we get to see that legendary ship.
And do you think the title comes from these skeletons that they were the skeleton crew, or is the skeleton crew now the name of this bunch of kids?
I think it's a little bit of both. It works both ways,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Um, the old crew are now skeletons, and now there's the bare minimum of crew in terms of kids now running an operation. Um, so I think it's a pun both ways. I think,
Yeah, well, it definitely works both ways. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and we head to Port Borga, first revealed in a Legends book by Kevin G. Anderson, the Young Jedi Adventures, way back
Really? Really? Oh,
in
that's
the
good.
1990s. And that is where the droid takes him on his ship because that's what he knows. And it's probably existed since however years he's been stuck aboard that ship. And they get a little transport down onto the planet.
And I
Um,
love that. I love how they did that. How they had to have like a little transport come and take them down there.
yeah,
That was
it
very,
was, it was
very
quite
cool.
clever. Little things like that is the things that I appreciate, I think, in Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah.
The thought out real world. They first encounter prostitutes and
Drunks,
who notices the kids and becomes apparently concerned, but well, I don't know. Um, the boys they head to the pub
as you do, go
as
in
you
the
do,
local
and of
spoons.
course he
Yeah.
goes to pay, and comes back to the whole Atatin storyline. He comes to pay with just normal coins that his father's given him in the morning to pay for lunch, and the pirates go crazy for it because it's Old Republic coins, which are
Yeah.
worth an absolute fortune because they're so rare.
Yeah.
So the whole sort of bar kind of gathers around. How's this kid splashing about Old Republic coins? They make the escape, but they're quickly cornered by the pirates and an old friend of ours from the Mandalorian, uh, Vance, who you've interviewed on stage, Paul.
I have. I have interviewed him. Yeah, nice guy. Marty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you go
really.
on Father Tracks TV, you can look out that interview.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked very briefly about Skeleton Crew because we couldn't say much about it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I mean, he was in the first episode, but very much in the background. I thought, oh, there he is. But this was his prominent scene in
Yeah.
episode two.
And SM-33 comes out to protect his captain
Yeah.
because that's how he's programmed, how droids should behave. So we're liking this in this series.
You like this guy, Brian.
We
You
do
can
because
appreciate
he follows his programming, uh, and he goes face to face. The kids look on in shock. Doesn't go particularly well, to be fair.
no.
Um, as Brutus, the captain, basically blows him up, and the kids end up in jail, where they encounter Captain Silvo.
Who, until the other day, I thought this was the first time we see Jude Law, but no, apparently he's right at the start of them.
Yeah, I think he's going to basically have a number of personas
Yeah.
across this series. Um, I've heard one that's going to come from 1970 Star Wars comics. Is partly going to be
Yeah.
in the next episode.
Oh, wow.
So I imagine that's who he tells the kids he is. But well, I'll not spoil it for those that don't know. But he uses
You've
the
really
Force
got me
to
wanting to know.
recover the key, which is
Yeah.
an interesting thing to do because presumably he could have used the Force at any point to get the key and escape at any
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
So has he been hiding his Force abilities from the other pirates? And
He's
if he was
he's very
Captain
shrewd.
Silvo,
Yeah.
and he was an unsuccessful pirate captain.
Yeah,
Was that conscious?
possibly. Yeah, who knows? I mean, they may just have written the most clever Star Wars story ever, and we just don't know it yet. This
Yes,
could this could be the one, Brian. This could be it.
could be the one. But obviously, when he hears the kids talking about Jedi and the Jedi Temple and blah blah blah,
Yeah,
that's when he shows his ability in the Force, and
yeah.
it makes you wonder: did he do that purely because um, he knew that that would entice the kids to um, help him? Because there has to be a reason why he hasn't escaped the jail cell himself, because clearly he could have.
Maybe he takes these kids on, teaches them the ways of the Force, and these end up in the Ray film, the Ray trilogy. There you go.
Could well happen.
Yeah.
Um, the other question being, why does he take on different personas? Why is he hiding his real identity? What is his real identity, and is it
He,
relevant?
he is Mr. Ben. That's one
Yeah.
for the UK viewers there.
So lots of interesting elements, and it's interesting it's taken to the end of the second episode to bring sort of Jude Law into it in a prominent kind of way.
Well, the first time I've seen him.
Yeah. So, what's your take on the first two episodes, Paul? Did you enjoy it?
Loved it. Really, really loved it. I mean, like George Lucas said before, Star Wars is really aimed at children. The fact that we still enjoy it as adults is testament to the film being really good, and some of the subsequent films, some of. Um, but this, I mean, it was being touted as being very Amblin, as in The Goonies, E.T., a little bit of Stranger Things thrown in there, and it's lived up to that. It's good quality. It's got a good story. Um, at the end of the episode, you're wanting to know what happens next,
Yeah.
rather than think, well, that was a hard 45 minutes to get through. You want to know what happens next. So for me, this is up there with some of the best Disney Plus we've had. This is up there with Andor season one and Mandalorian seasons one and two.
Yeah.
It's up
And that's
there.
part of why, and what I've shown you here. I've tried to avoid going down the route that many other people have done by showing all the Easter eggs and all the connection to 80 films and
Yeah.
80s TV, because there's hundreds of them. You
Oh
could spend
yes.
the whole episode talking about that. Try to
Yeah.
focus on the plot, because
Yeah.
this is a great story so
It
far.
is. Yeah.
So it's great when you watch it back and you know, oh, look at that, and that name relates to that, and you can do that with the biker kids that Fern sort of rivals with, of the same name as uh, Harrison Ford and American Graffiti and all these kind of things. You can start picking up on all these kind of little Easter eggs, but none of them are necessarily important to the story. Um, and so I've kind of focused on the story here, because that's what makes Star Wars, is you become immersed in the story. And we'll all go back to it's knights and princesses, and it's all these kind of things that would go back to our childhood. And it's because you fall in love with the storyline and you fall in love with the characters. And I think that was what was important about this series so far, is that each character's had a little bit of room to develop,
Yeah.
probably apart from KB.
There was that one nice little scene where the kids all wandered off, and KB was looking at different animals in cages and some fish in some
Yeah,
tanks and things like that. And you could see that there was like a wonderment on her face.
yeah,
These were things that she'd never seen before. So it was a very subtle bit of acting, but she can clearly act.
yeah.
And from the interviews that Mark Newbold did with them, she was very energetic. So
Yes.
I'd be very surprised if she doesn't come into her own at
Yeah.
some
And
point.
I think that, listening to what John Watts has said as well, he picked all the kids as actors because their personalities were like the characters. So I hope
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
a lot more to come from KB.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not criticizing her. I just think out of all the characters, she's not had the room to grow that the other characters have had so far.
Sometimes you have to do that to give the other ones space, I
Yes.
suppose.
And that's why I kind of hope, if
Yeah.
episode one is Wim's characters, episode two's Fern's, they're all
Yeah.
going to get their moment to shine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that will happen as well. And all credit to the young lad that plays Neil, because he's given that character some believability, if you like.
Yeah, and I was watching it. I've been doing a deep dive into Neil, um, because there is not just him on stage wearing the ILM headset. There's also been actress on stage and a physical representation of Neil, and they've shot it multiple times in different ways, and they've changed up the scene to match the actor who plays Neil's characteristics and way that he acts out the scene.
Yeah,
So his performance comes through really nicely.
yeah.
Um, a really irritating character, but in the most wonderful way.
I don't know. I don't find him very irritating. I think
I
it's just
do. He's far too nice.
you want to hate him.
I do want to hate him. I told you his first option he was to turn Sith.
He hadn't. I mean, Wim had at least got some sort of hilt. Poor Neil, he got nothing. Nothing at
That's
all.
true. That's very true. But yeah, that
Oh,
was the first two episodes, Paul, and I was kind of surprised how much I enjoyed them.
same here. And it's a testament to it. The fact is that I've watched it 3 times now, episodes one
Yeah.
and two. So that certainly didn't happen with the Acolyte.
No, no. And I think that's what makes this fun is that they're very rewatchable.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the fault with a lot of the Star Wars. It's like, how many people have gone back to watch Jack Black and Lizzo?
Oh,
See, yeah, that's the kind of reaction. Some of what we've gotten in content wise has
yeah.
been hard to go back and rewatch.
Oh
This was
God, yeah.
so
Yeah.
easily rewatchable,
No.
and because it's so layered in the writing and the presentation, there's all these Easter eggs. It's fun to start spotting them. So once
Yeah.
you've watched the story and you enjoy the story, you can go back and watch it a different way.
Well, I
And
mean, I will be looking for some sort of YouTube entry where it states what these different Easter eggs and things are, because and then I'll go back and watch it again. But yeah, I don't always pick up on things, as you spotted with Jude Law. But
yeah, it's when next week we find out it wasn't Jude Law.
I'll go get in. Oh dear.
But yeah, I'm presently surprised. I'm looking forward to what's to come. Um, the marketing of it, obviously, they've tried to market it as not for kids, it's for everybody kind of thing. Not so
Yeah.
sure that that's worked brilliantly, but I hope now the first two episodes are out and people are enjoying them so much, it gives it an extra kick and it picks up even more viewers for week three. I'm interested to
Yeah.
see what the viewership numbers are like
Yeah.
because this deserves a strong viewership.
I do know a lot of people that wait until all episodes have been
Yeah.
released before they'll watch it, because they like to watch in that format, which is fair enough.
And it's also a difficult time of year for people to find time to put into something new.
Yeah, but I think I'm right in saying, Brian, that it's been pretty much widely received as being good stuff.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
that's kind of surprised people. I think a
yeah.
lot of people, and I wasn't
Oh,
looking to hate on it,
they were
but
waiting to hate it. Yeah.
a lot of people obviously were, and I think it kind
Mm.
of shocked them a little bit that oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Kind of almost, and to the point that this is actually good.
Isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, which is a positive.
Yeah, it is because there's such an attitude as well within Star Wars
Yeah,
fandom of looking to find the problems with things that
absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
this was one where everyone's it's going to be terrible. It's going to be about kids and it's da da da.
Well, it's like hating on Star Wars has become like an
Exactly.
obsession, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a way to generate income from it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but we'll
But
look
no, for
forward
me,
to this week.
really,
Episodes falling
yeah,
on the Wednesday.
that's it. A really strong start. Look, can't wait for episode 3.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And on that note, we'll wrap up the first of our Bone Voyages. And Bone Voyage is part of Good Morning Tatooine, your weekly recap of all the latest Star Wars news, live streaming every Sunday at 9 p.m. in the UK, 4 p.m. in New York. And it also releases its own video on Father Tracks TV every Monday at 7 p.m.